Yes, I'm Spencer Kelly. So unlike the other two developers you're going to hear tonight, I'm actually a very mediocre and clumsy web developer. I live downtown. I struck gold about 2 months ago on the side project I started called NLP Compromise. What it is, it's a natural language processing toolkit. It's unique, A, because it's in JavaScript, but B, because it's one JavaScript file that's able to run in the browser. So if you're not familiar with NLP, it's basically the idea that you take text and you get JSON at the end, or like some sort of structured data. It does things like, part-of-speech tagging, possessives, contractions, all the things that you don't want to do if you're using like regular expressions on text, like handles. So I started this, as I said, on like a clumsy Sunday afternoon with too much coffee. It made the top of Hacker News sort of 2 months ago. It's been on Reddit. I get job offers from like major retail banks that are using it now. I quit my job. It's become a huge thing. I feel like the first time in my life as a developer, I've like found this hole where there's not software written already, or like people don't realize they need this tool before I made it. Anyway, so it's been quite an experience. If I had my way, I would talk about grammar sort of the whole time. But given that it's a Node.js audience, I'll try to make it more technical. Sort of the TLDR of this whole talk is that your side projects are really valuable. Sometimes you don't even realize how easy it is to slip into a place where nobody's written software before. So if you just drink beer and don't listen for the rest of the talk, that's the one way to take it. So as we're going to start up, we're a couple of weeks from launching. Our main call to action on our onboarding flow looked like this. You're supposed to type in things that you're interested in. We were expecting stuff like this. I was a search bar guy. I imported all the Wikipedia article titles, and I put it into Elasticsearch, so it was loose and stuff. We were expecting stuff like that. I was pretty confident in it. I didn't think I was going to be the bottleneck for the whole startup. But how about people typed in things like this when we did a user testing? The next person typed in something like those red iPods, right? So they're typing natural language in here, and we were getting no results for our search. And it was a huge problem. That evening, my boss called me to his office. I had a suspicion I was getting fired because I was like the reason why the product wasn't working. He said, we have this term, Spencer. So if we don't have the whole string, why don't we just split them up by words and look them up? So I said, okay. Like I knew that some of our terms are 2 words, right? London, Ontario in the rain, or like Paris, Hilton in the rain, whatever. So I knew what the problem was going to be is that it's called an n-gram, right? So in computer science 101, you take like the combinations. You take all the combination of 3, combination of 2, combination of 1, and you can see it's not quite exponential, but it grows really fast. And so the problem is that even on a query like London in the rain, we're sending 10 HTTP requests to the server. So not only does that threaten to crash the browser, but definitely if you have more than one user on your site, the search API is going to die. So anyway, it wasn't working. We knew we had to do something. We had 2 weeks to do it. What I did, I think I did what anybody in this room would do. I made like a stop word like this. So in and the, we just chopped them out because we know those words already. They're really frequent too, so we just throw them away. We still have like 7 terms though, right? And so I started to look at the other ones. London in the, and in the rain. So London in, it ends in the word in, which is really awkward, right? Also, the word ends in the word of, it's really awkward. So I was looking at these words like in and of, and I Googled, I knew there existed a field called linguistics, and they do classifications of words. So in and of and by and for, these are called prepositions. So pretty quickly, it became useful to know what class of word it was when I was looking at it, just so I could filter out these crummy examples. The last one, sorry, it got split up here, but it was the rain and rain. So if we're searching for rain, it's redundant to search for the rain. And our rain, on rain, or the rain, those rains, something like that. So we had to know that determiners are also useful. Anyway, you can see how really quickly it falls into needing to know part of speech, right? I didn't want to get into linguistics at all, but I fell into it. This is what the landscape looks like for natural language processing today. Many people know this one. This is the top one. It's huge. It's like 10 gigabytes if you download it, right? And a lot of these projects, I don't want to lambast them, but many of them are from the 80s, right? If you want to get XML out of them, like, good luck, right? And some of these tools, too, on the left-hand side are really great. They're like web APIs, so you call them, you pay like 1 cent the request or something like this. But remember, though, that a lot of these tools, not to disparage them, but a lot of them are just wrappers of these tools, right? Like if you give someone enough drinks at a conference like this, who works at one of these companies, they'll tell you that, right? So this seemed like overkill to me. I didn't remember going back a few slides. I was able to get my 10 n-grams down to 3 n-grams just with a few lines of JavaScript. So I thought, like, how much can we actually get away with like these sort of crowbar type of attitudes with language, right? Like, is language so big that we can't even like fathom it? Or how did I get so lucky with these n-gram problems? The short answer is that language is actually really small, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. It's not as gnarly and not as scary as people like to think. Okay, so when we're talking about how big language is, usually see graphs like this. If you can't see it, the axis is 30,000. I don't like this chart. It's supposed to like say that, you know, if you go to Yale, you have your vocabulary this big and stuff like this. But anyway, when you talk about the size of a person's vocabulary, it looks around 30,000. Shakespeare, if you do a split on every word, it's 35,000. So something like that. That's roughly how big language is. You can imagine if you had a little microphone on your ear from the time you were born to the time you died, like, and someone was clicking like every time you heard a new word, you get to around 30,000. Not double that, not half that. The other thing that's important with language is that it follows a thing called Zipf's law, right? And the important thing to know about Zipf's law is that if you plot the frequency of all the terms on a graph, it's really steep. And what's interesting is that all the languages do it. In fact, all the characters of all the languages do it. People have like analyzed whale songs to find Zipf's law. And anyway, I won't talk about it too much. But the interesting thing is that it's really steep, right? If we want to place a filter here and say ignore 95%, or sorry, ignore 5% of the long tail, we can just put a filter right here and get away with quite a lot. So 50,000 words. If you print it out, I did for this talk, it's only 602 kilobytes, right? To put that in perspective, if you have a startup and you have a full screen image on the back of your website, that's like 3 megabytes, right? So all of the human language that you're ever going to use, you know, like we all spend our lives like talking and reading and writing and so forth, but all of it is 602 kilobyte text file, uncompressed. And of course, as engineers in this room, many people are thinking, well, I can get 602 down smaller. And that's exactly what I spent my weekends doing. If you don't know WordNet, it's really great. It's like the one tool that like had to be made once and then got made once in the 80s, and now everybody uses it. It's like, I don't know what the comparison, like Google or something like that. But anyway, if you do the distribution of the parts of speech, nouns make up 70% of WordNet, right? And I looked at the other part of speech taggers. What I found was that like they have all these rules for understanding a word. If all those rules fail, if they're a fallback condition, they always resort to a noun, right? And that makes sense. If you say like, if I say the word lactobacillus, you may, if you're not a biologist, you're not going to know what that is. But you know it's not be lactobacillus down the road, or you know that person isn't very lactobacillus, right? It's a thing, it's a noun, right? So if we just get rid of all of it and we fall back to nouns, we're able to get this down, our 600 kilobytes down to 180 kilobytes. Right, and the other thing too, I won't get too technical into this, but words conjugate, they move around, they're really slippery, right? If you learn the word tomato, we're also going to learn the word tomatoes and tomato-y. And if you make it more of a tomato, you make tomatoize it, right? So we in Stardust, we really use this one, like fastly and so forth. In sports, they really use this one, like powerfulness and stuff. But anyway, so we conjugate our words. In NLP Compromise, what I did is I just took the most common verbs in one form, like walk, and then I learned the rules for conjugating. And I won't talk about conjugating verbs, but you can do walked, walking, walker, will walk, have walked, whatever. So many forms of them. And you see that we've gotten our 600 kilobytes down to 110 kilobytes. To put that in perspective, jQuery uncompressed is 256 kilobytes, right? And as you can see, we're getting like it's almost linear when you look at it this way. the bytes may not be to scale, but it's very, very small. It's a little bit like how Richard Dawkins says, like the difference between you and an oak tree is like 2 kilobytes or something like that. It's insane how small language is, even though we're spending all this time using it. Okay, so what I did was I actually went ahead with it and made a parse speech taker. As you can see, we've got the lexicon part. I won't get too in detail about this stuff, but there's basically 3 ways to perform parse speech taking. First one is lexicon, the words we know. Second one is suffix, like regular expressions, for words we don't know. And that was really easy. This is actually how brutally easy it was. I know a lot of people will groan when they see this, but like, if you say like eest, like funniest, or quickliest, that's the JJ means adjective, and S means superlative adjective. Don't ask me why. That's from the Penn tree bank. But anyway, this is just a shot. It's pretty simple. And I know there's better ways to than just running through a list of regular expressions, but that's what I did, and it works fine. The last component of parse speech taking, to find out the nouns and verbs and so forth of a sentence, is to look at the actual post-processing of the sentence. Like in this example, she could walk the walk. We realize that verb, determiner, verb is like some sort of invalid state, and so we know how to convert that into verb, determiner, noun. This part I thought was going to be a huge part of the project. It ended up being very, very small. Like, if you throw a whole novel into NLP compromise, this method only gets hit like a dozen times. So it's almost redundant. Yeah, so in summary of what we've done so far, it's so easy to do this, right? So many PhDs and careers of brilliant people have spent their lives, getting 81% to like 92%. People have conferences about they fight about 92 versus 93% and so forth. But anyone here can do this in an afternoon. If 81% doesn't seem like enough for your projects, like imagine a library that was 10 stories full of books. Like you could go out to the 8th floor, and every single sentence looking down is understood perfectly by your weekend program. It's a little funny to think about. And when I've been making this sort of by myself in my apartment, I sort of had to stop a few times and be like, how come no one's done this before? And I've only had that feeling a couple times in my life with a project, so that's why I'm excited about this. Anyway, the project is at a sort of funny place right now. I didn't anticipate the attention it was going to get in the past couple of months. One thing I was doing just for fun, it's actually taken off, is negating sentences. Like, keep on, is it, didn't keep on rocking in the free world, or keep on rocking in the non-free world? Or like, I don't know how to do it. I don't even know what it's for. But you get people on GitHub like filing issues saying, oh, thanks, like, you found a valid here with negate. Anyway, the other thing that people want to use language for is transformations. This one guy made a Hulk transformation. So if you type in like I am happy, it will say Hulk happy. So it's quite a popular thing. It's actually really hard to do now if you don't use a sort of library like this, right? And in its current form, it's not actually very easy to do things like this with NLP compromise, but I really want to make this a library for doing stuff like this. Most important slide, and I'm almost at the end. These 2 sentences, we gave the monkeys the bananas because they were ripe. We gave the monkeys the bananas because they were hungry. These 2 sentences are exactly the same syntactically, right? And in fact, one of the easiest things in language, like little children, while they're learning languages, one of the first things they know is they can refer to the bananas. And they, in that sense, refers to the monkeys, right? How do they know that? Because ripe bananas are things that can be ripe, and monkeys are things that can be hungry. Anyway, you can't do this with like a list of regular expressions or stuff like that. My library will not ever be able to handle this. So when you ever hear people talk about how their natural language has reached 98% accuracy, like tell them that they're wrong. There's a limit to what's possible. When people try to understand the text, it usually goes like this. They do regular expressions on sort of an array of characters, or however your language handles it. This is what I'm trying to get people to go to. It's much easier to work with sort of 20 classes of things. Whatever you're doing with text, you're trying to understand. Chatbots are becoming a real big thing, so that's part of the reason why people are flocking to this. The other stuff, which I know nothing about, but would like to learn more about is dependency parsing. You see this in like linguistics classes where people draw the sticks down after the sentence. So we gave, and then everything after that is what we gave. And the last step, sorry, my emoticons got screwed up, but is like actually understanding what a monkey is and actually understanding what banana is. People used to call this Psych, like OpenPsych, the project. I used to call this Freebase. Both of those projects have died like spectacularly. When people call this Wikidata, I like roll my eyes at them. Anyway, the top level is completely unsolved. It's a huge problem and very interesting one. So in summary, these are the things that we're talking about sort of in the project right now. This immutable question, a lot of libraries are having the same discussion. It's pretty interesting. Like, can you time travel with the library and stuff like this? This is something I really want to get into, other languages. I am of the opinion that it would be better as a hard fork of the library, like just another rule-based system for handling Spanish or Portuguese, you name it. This last part, I think is really important. When D3 started out, the reason for success was that it was so easy to sort of hack something together and share it and get feedback and stuff like this, right? He made this way of sharing right baked into the library. I think I'm trying to think of a good way. I've played with Atomic, so I welcome all this feedback about how best to do that. I really think that's important. Yeah, so I'm Spencer. I live in Toronto. Just done that. Come talk to me, and thanks very much. Questions? Yeah.
Did you try implementing somehow named entity recognition?
Yes. Yeah. So for those, named entity recognition is the idea that you look at person names, or like if you say the word Toronto, you can recognize that as a thing. Like what people just define as a named entity is really different. That's been my frustration with that named entity recognition problem, is that every time somebody uses your project, they're wanting to do something different with it, and their concept of named entity means something different. So what I've done is I've been able to parse pretty successfully, like names of people, cities and stuff. There's also a lot of signals, you know, with Inc. or Mr. and Mrs. like Sir, things like this. Capitals are a huge signal. So name recognition isn't actually that hard.
I got to be like a dictionary lookup like this?
Yes. Yeah, I got in trouble. I won't even mention it. When I got on Reddit, one of the things NLP Compromise does, because if you say Jack and Jill walked to the park, he got the water, he refers to Jack. You know that because Jack is a male name, and so I got in trouble with like the transgender rights community because I'm saying like John is a male name or something like this. So you have to watch it. Like there's like subjective bias when you're doing name identity recognition. I should mention that. Yeah.
Do you end up compressing the work, like all the data afterwards, or you just keep it connected?
Yeah. Well, it's a JavaScript library, so it's gzipped. I don't have to do that, but I'm pretty pleased with the file size. My ambitions are to make it like plugin, like how jQuery was. So it's really easy just to add new functionality on top of it. People want to add new things in their lexicon. You know, if you say hammered in America, it means drunk, but if you say hammered in Britain, it means tired. So you have to like no library like this will ever be perfect, and so you have to support this sort of flexible use of it. But in terms of compression, absolutely, I'm very sensitive about the file size. I think it needs to stay very small. Is that it? Thank you guys very much.